Hello, everyone. Today we are happy to welcome Joanna the Healer with us. Thank you for coming on, Joanna. Welcome. I wanted to get started by just asking you if you could tell viewers when this started, like when this became a part of your life and how the process started for you.
That's a very interesting question because I believe the process started when I was very young, but I wasn't aware of it until my late 20s, early 30s. So many people, channelers that I've spoken to, have had experiences in their early childhood. They've seen ghosts, they've seen spirits. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. I feel it's because I was living in so much fear. It would probably open a doorway that would scare me even more. So that's just my logical thinking. But there were a few moments as I look back in my life. Sorry, I'm just looking away to concentrating. There are a few moments that as I look back in my life at a very young age that made me go, that's an interesting thought I had at 5 years old. And the very first thought I remember was I was about the age of 5. Lots seem to have happened around the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere there. And I remember being in a forest with my mom and her friend, and we were picking flowers. And I think the flowers were lily of the valley. That's somehow significant. And I remember picking the flowers, and I said out loud, "The greatest threat to Mother Nature is a human being."
Mm.
And we just kind of left it. And then years and years later, I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting thing to say at 5 years old. So I've had these moments of clarity, I think. So that's the first thing. The second thing was at around the same age. I remember exactly what I was. I was in Poland because that's where I'm from. I was in the kitchen cleaning. I was very sad because I was typically a very sad child. And I remember saying, God, why am I here? And again, my perception is that a typical kid doesn't ask these questions. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I
Yeah.
didn't think they did. And that was kind of it. I don't remember receiving an answer. I don't know if I was actually looking for an answer, but that was a question I posed. The other thing was that I've always been fascinated with aliens. It's like I was stuck to a glued TV from a very, very young age, just fascination with aliens. So those were kind of the things that as I looked back when I was older, I thought, I think I was getting glimpses of aspects of me that I wasn't consciously aware of what they were. The other thing I remember was that I always said, I want to be a teacher. Now, when I said that I want to be a teacher, my concept of a teacher was you go to school and the teacher has control over what marks they give you. So that was my concept of a teacher. And then I went through life. I went through a lot of, turmoil like life presents to you. And at about the age of 29, my son was about 6 months old. I was in my bedroom. My husband and I were in a process of separation, and I was about to fall asleep, and I was laying on the bed, and I felt this force trying to open my eyes. It wasn't painful, but it was definitely like somebody was trying to pry my eyes open. So I sat up, I opened my eyes, I looked to my right, and right there in front of me, there was a being standing full on 3D. And the best way that I can describe this being is I felt it was a male, although I didn't see his face because he was wearing a robe like a monk would wear with a hood. He was standing to the side, so I wasn't able to see his face. I know exactly what he was wearing. The robe, he had a like a cord around his waist, not cord, but like a cord around his waist. And he was holding this white book. And my focus went into this white book, and I know that it was somehow important for me to see this book. But how I felt in that moment, I could describe it. The only way I could describe it was total bliss. It was something I have never felt before in my life. It was almost non-human. And it's something I don't know if I'm going to feel again. I've had moments, but not like this. And everything in my room suspended. It just became still. And I remember just sitting there watching this being, and we were just watching. There were tears running down my face, not because I was sad. I guess my body was just releasing, and my body was vibrating, but how I felt was out of this world. And I wasn't sure what was happening, but I had no thoughts. I had absolutely no thoughts. I was just absolutely being. And I remember thinking to myself later, if I felt like this every day, life would make no sense. Nothing would make sense because I had zero attachment to anything. And I don't know how long it lasted, probably a few seconds. I have no idea because the concept of time was completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, my life kind of catapulted forward. So I got divorced. It was a messy divorce. We battled for a long time. And it just kind of put me on a path of wanting to explore spirituality. Now, I was always interested in that subject. I think the first book that I read on the subject was when I was about 13 years old, and I think the book was called Life After Life. So I always had these interests. Thank you. They're reminding me. The other thing that I remember very early on in life, because I was born into Catholicism. But I was going to Catholic school, Catholicism. When you go to school when you're young,
Catechism.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
And I remember thinking to myself, this makes no sense to me. Like, it makes no sense to me. The whole idea of telling a priest, another human, your sins, first and foremost, what sins do I have at 7 years old? And number two, why am I saying this to someone who's just as human as me?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to that word class,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember seeing the priest sitting with a woman, and he was smoking a cigarette. And I went, wait a second, I thought cigarette was a sin. So it kind of messed with my head. It's like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. So a lot of the teachings and the beliefs that I was taught in Catholic environment made no sense to me. So I questioned things from a very young age, but I didn't really, it was just questioning. So to make a long story short, that's kind of sort of what catapulted me forward. I was always fascinated with psychology. In fact, I remember going to a gym. It was a ladies only gym. And I remember thinking, why are these strangers coming to me and telling me their stories? They don't know anything about me. And this would happen over and over and over again. And so I started thinking maybe I should go into psychology, but it didn't really make sense to me. Like, the whole idea of going to school for psychology didn't make sense to me. And then I discovered hypnotherapy. So I went to a hypnotherapy session, and in that moment, I knew this is what I wanted to pursue. So I took hypnotherapy courses. I have a diploma in hypnotherapy. Then I took counseling courses, and it just kind of sort of went from there. And when I was doing sessions with clients, I started to very clearly hear in my mind clear directions that didn't appear to come from me, how to guide a client in a session, what to say, and how to ask specific questions. And I noticed that when I was listening to it, the sessions were out of this world. And it just started to open more and more and more. And then I realized, I guess I'm tapping into some sort of source that's guiding me. And it just kind of evolved from there. A few years later, a friend of mine said, she used to do psychic fairs, and we were talking, and she knew about my experiences, and she said, hey, you should come to one of my psychic fairs to do a reading. And I said, you're funny. What am I going to do there? And she says, you're a medium. I'm like, no, I'm not a medium. But I thought, okay, well, if this is being presented to me and a spot just happened to open up, and I thought, okay, well, let's see what happens. I was nervous as hell. Went to this psychic fair, and I remember a client came in, and as she's sitting across from me, this is so funny, I have a vision of a turtle. I'm going, okay, I'm losing my mind here. And this turtle is communicating to me And I'm going, okay, I either tell her this and she laughs at me, or I have no idea. I'm just going to say it. So I said, listen, I don't know what this means. I don't know if I'm making this up, but I have a turtle communicating to me. And this turtle is showing me that every time it would eat grass, it would throw up. And she said, my turtle George died 6 weeks ago, and every time I would feed him grass, he would throw up. And
Oh.
then, and then I thought, okay, this is really weird.
Mhm.
The next time I went to a psychic fair, a lady came in. She sat in front of me, and I had this little girl that came to me. And all this little girl wanted me to say to this person, to this client, was, it was not your fault. So I said to her, I have this little girl. I don't know who she is, but she asks me to tell you it's not your fault. And she just unraveled and she had to leave. I felt so bad. But apparently, that message had such a profound impact that she couldn't hold all the emotions that she was feeling. So the lady who was putting on the psychic fair, she says, go outside. You gave her a message that was really impactful. You didn't do anything wrong, because I felt so bad. And I came back and I kept going on. So those were the things that kind of told me, okay, even though I don't necessarily believe that I do this thing, whatever it is, it seems to be creating a profound impact in a very positive way. So it just kind of evolved from there. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I hear that, I think about it's difficult to put that out there. I get things like that too, and I think, how am I going to say that? What if it isn't true? It requires a great deal of trust, and it actually expands your gift when you do move into that trusting place, but it's not always easy to do. The other thing I really resonated with was people coming to you with their problems, strangers just telling you everything, and you think, why is this person telling me about their divorce, the death of their child, the
Mm-hmm.
loss of whatever it is? I couldn't go in a coffee shop without having someone come up to me and tell me. And so that kind of is an early sign, or something, because normally people that become mediums or even channelers are very empathetic. And that's why people are attracted to them. And that empathy is used by entities that use you as a vehicle for channeling, so that they can actually feel the situation
Mm-hmm.
and then give you proper guidance, as you were saying, in what direction to move with them. So I very much relate to that.
Yes, and
Yeah.
thank you for saying that, because when you and I were talking and you mentioned the point about being empathetic. When I was growing up, which is something that you will resonate with, I was bullied a lot. In fact, I felt that there was something written on my head that said, please abuse me.
Mm.
And the saddest part of it was that, yes, kids get bullied all the time, but when I went to the authorities and I asked for help, I didn't get any. So the message I got was, well, you can be abused, but you're kind of sort of on your own. So I felt very alone. I lost, can I say I lost trust? Yes, I didn't trust people. But the biggest thing was, what's wrong with me? For most of my life, I grew up believing that there was something fundamentally wrong with me, to the point that there were many times in my life that I wished I was dead, because it would be better than, if I was dead. So, but yes, the compassion, the empathy, I feel that's part of it. People feel comfortable coming to you. And I don't remember what it is that I was saying to them, but whatever was coming out of my mouth, they would say, oh my God, I don't know why I said this to you, but I feel so good. So,
Yeah.
so that's the magnet, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It really seems, and I'm sure it's not the case with everyone who does channeling or mediumship, but it sure seems like so many people's stories are like yours, where they've had a difficult childhood, or they felt like a loner, or they weren't full of confidence. And it just seems like it's almost a life pattern or plan that really precipitates.
Yeah, I mean, I actually got bullied and picked on. I was chubby and overweight and
Same.
a lot of picking on and insults. And I would be never share it with my parents because I was humiliated. I thought that there was something wrong with me and that I probably
Yeah.
deserved what was coming at me. So I can very much relate to that. And the other thing that I think is very connective and that could be linked to causing a connection or someone becoming a teacher or a channeler is the question asker. That's what I was, like you were. I would lay in bed at night and I would wonder, am I still going to be Robin when I'm dead? Am I going to know who I am? Will I be as though I never existed? Or is there some continuum? And so those continuous questions and thoughts from an early age, sometimes the universe does really want to answer you. And if you're persistent enough and you keep asking enough questions, eventually those answers start to come in.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very true. Later on, when I was kind of tuning in and asking, like, why did I have to go through all of this? My understanding is that I am here to understand the human condition so that I can help with a human condition. And if I have no concept of what that condition is, I don't have the ability to help somebody. Not only that, speaking about trusting yourself and believing in yourself, at the end of the day, if you really think about it, a lot of people don't believe in their power. We are powerful beings. Everyone knows that conceptually, but not many people wear it. And there is a difference between having a concept and then embodying that concept. So for me because I believe it's been told to me in many different versions what my purpose is. I believe my purpose is to help people wake up to the reality of who they really are. But in order for me to help them see that within themselves, I had to look within myself to see that in me. So I believe the experiences were very much aligned with my path and what I'm here to do, much like you.
Yeah. And there's a tremendous amount of self-healing, observation of yourself that you have to go through, the recognition that you've created everything, you've brought it to yourself on what you're holding within you. And so I for a long time, I felt victimized. I felt, those types of emotions. And that continued on probably like you in your early 20s. I was reading a lot of material on spirituality, really loved it and enjoyed it. And it was starting to make sense to me. But I still hadn't really grasped the concept of why I was getting what I was getting, and certainly not to the detail that I do now about how the chakras actually work and the connection that we have to the universe through those energy centers. And so I didn't have a lot of that understanding. And I would say probably in my late 30s to early 40s is when I really started delving more into myself, into what was I actually creating? How was I some way attracting to myself experiences that maybe weren't fully satisfying or made me feel victimized, let's just put it that way. And so then that was probably a 10-year period of really feeling and observing and looking at things that were coming to me and taking circumstances and people out of the situation and being accountable really for what I had in my life.
I love what you're saying, especially about the victimization, because I consider myself a victim pro. We all go through it, most people. And I remember there was a period of life when I was such a victim. I blamed everything on my mom or my dad and this and this and that. And I remember writing in my journal, my mom caused this, my dad caused this, but I had to go through it. And I don't exactly remember how I emerged out of it. It was obviously a process, of going within. But the whole idea of a victim, and many people that I speak with, I would say most of them feel that life happens to them. And it's very difficult for a person to make peace with the fact that what they're experiencing, especially something they're not happy about, is very much, if not their creation, it's a co-creation. So my aim, if you want to call it, is to help people understand how they create their reality. And yes, we're born with certain parameters, to certain parents, to certain homes. Yes, that's all quote unquote set in stone. But in my understanding and in my belief, a lot of our life is not set in stone. It is guided by our unconscious belief system, which we gather through our upbringing and through our experiences. So I love what you're saying about the victimhood, because that is something I went through and I'm a pro at it. So I can easily see it and I can easily help people pinpoint it without blame, because that's a big one, right? For example, if someone comes to me and says, my partner is abusive, for me to say, oh, you've created this. Not going to work. I have to approach it from a space where they can actually digest it. So rather than saying, hey, you've created this, it's far more productive to take them to their inner self and help them see it for themselves so that it's self-evident. So it's not what I tell them, but it's what they experience. And once they see it, that's like, vroom, that's where everything opens up. So that's when they clearly can see that, yes, a big part of what they're experiencing is very much tied to their belief system. The only problem is that belief system has been covered up and not seen. And once it's seen, it can be shifted and changed. So yeah, very powerful.
Well,
Yeah.
even to take that concept a step further, the group that I channeled did a recording this morning that went out, and they talked about the repetitive signals that we send out over and over again in the same emotion in respect to the same situations. And so that is really one of the biggest creations of separation, because there's not an understanding that you've been received the first time that you felt something, and therefore are safe to let go of it and then move into trust and belief that the universe is going to flow you the solution. But what we do is we think that the behavior of someone that we are with is the cause of the repeat emotion, but really it's our lack of trust, our lack of belief, our lack of understanding that we have been received, and that therefore all we're doing is creating more layers of that same emotion, more mirrors that are coming to us, because we don't understand the concept of the gods that we are, that in a moment that you have a thought or something that is preferred, that the universe receives that emotion and lifts it and actually cultivates experiences that are going to be satisfying for you. But you never get to see those in form. You continue to send out the same signal over and over again because you can't trust or believe that it has actually been received. So I think it's important for people to know that you are connected, whether you know it or not, and that everything that you are thinking and feeling is being received. And that even goes along with the principle of pretending to be positive. Why would you bother to pretend or stand in the corner and repeat something over and over again that you're really not feeling, when the universe is feeling you? It is you. You know what you feel. You know the truth of how you are inside. And it's important for people to understand that the universe knows that too, and therefore there's no reason to pretend to feel something else, because you are being received.
I often say your human mind will tell you 1,000 lies, and you can actually believe in all of them, but your energy will never lie. And the moment you tap in, and emotion, feeling is energy. And the moment you allow yourself to tune in and inquire, what are you telling me? The truth, as I call it, is evident, because everybody holds within themselves different kinds of truths. I mean, there is the ultimate truths, and then there's the personal truth, and then everything in between. So, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So if I thought this might be a good time, if you want to maybe show listeners or tell listeners what your process is. And then we thought we would give them a sample of what you specialize in, which is working on limiting programming, things that hold people back. So if you want to share your process, and then maybe we'll start with Robin, and she can ask a question, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So what is your process?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
What is my process? First and foremost, my aim is to help people identify their inner blocks.
Okay.
What is a block? Block is essentially an energy that's stuck and it's unable to flow. It creates certain feelings, emotions, and it creates triggers. So one of the easiest way for me to guide a client is to help them notice and acknowledge their triggers, because trigger is nothing more, nothing less than information. Trigger contains within it a certain truth. Most people are trigger reactive, not necessarily trigger responsive. So when we get triggered, we often react, and it's an unconscious reaction. So when we unconsciously react to triggers, then we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. So one of the ways that I guide a person is to, hey, notice your triggers and go within and inquire in that moment what's being triggered, because what's being triggered is some sort of a story. And if a story is being triggered, it means that there is some story. You may not be consciously aware of the story, but story is there. So if you're being triggered, quote unquote, negatively by some sort of a story, then that means that there is some truth that lives within you that is usually based in fear or pain that has not been transformed, transmuted, or released.
Okay.
And then I take them through a process to release that in various ways. So some of the tools that I use, which are very much based in hypnotherapy, is inner child work, shadow work, I forget the other words. It's basically helping people understand who they are, what their blocks are, by helping them tune in to what they feel. And I don't know in your experience, I'm pretty sure it's similar to mine. Most people don't want to feel, which is really interesting because everybody wants to be loved. But to allow yourself to be loved, you have to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, I could say that a big part of my process is helping people be more comfortable with what they feel without the judgment of what they're feeling. Because I always say, if you're feeling something, then that means there is a certain truth. It may not be the truth, but it's your truth. And if your truth is somehow negatively impacting the world that you experience, then we have to create a different truth. In order to create a different truth, we have to heal whatever is creating your current truth, which is always in the past. So at the end of the day, it's really about helping people move through their unconscious beliefs by releasing pain, by releasing fear, by releasing unprocessed emotions. And it's very somatic because emotion is stuck in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of sort of the short of it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Very similar to exactly the work that I do too. So
I figured, yeah.
Really understand what you're talking about. The only thing that I would say that differs a little bit, and I know as humans we look at past, present, and future, but really everything is existing at the same time. And I try to get clients to understand that they have created a reality where that truth exists, where there's actually a dimension or a level of reality where they've created a separate reality that exists with that negativity, with that emotion. And so what you're really trying to do in their awakeness by bringing the divine presence, a consciousness or awareness of it to them, they can actually bring that aspect back into themselves and therefore embody it into the present state that they want to be in, rather than letting it be out there on its own, so to speak, expressing from there, because there are so many possibilities and probabilities that are all going on at one time. And it's hard for people to really get that concept or understanding because they do look at it as it happened in their past, or they're looking out into their future of something that they're fearful of or that might be coming. But it's good to let them know that that actually exists, that is not a figment of your imagination. I would add to that.
Right.
Yeah, and exactly what you said. Sorry, interrupt. Exactly to what you said. The typical comment is, "I want to get rid of what's in my past." I'm like, it may have happened back then, but it lives in you now. There is no past. There is no future. It's in the moment. So we're not releasing anything from the past. The memory comes from the past, but what you're holding on to and the energetic component, baby, you're holding it now.
Yeah. And then, it's easy when you're in a session because they'll be moved to tears. They'll be moved to despair or whatever emotion it was that they actually experienced at that time. If they are to just take a look at it, they realize it's real right now. It's just like when it happened as we touch it. So it's good to have that awareness.
Absolutely. Yes.
So Robin, do you have something that you would like to have Joanna help you with? Do you have a limiting belief or something that
I'll put Joanna on the spotlight. Even me as Robin and being a channeler, and I had struggled with confidence, like you mentioned about being overweight as a child, and sometimes those coats we continue to wear, they're there. And what I find, and I'd be interested to, maybe it's more of a question to you, is that the character that was Robin, or the life that was lived by Robin for all those years, is so embedded in me and in others. And then when this other thing now, the divine part of myself kind of merges into that with this new experience of channeling and opening up to a lot of spiritual experiences and different things, sometimes there's this inner struggle or this battle,
Mm-hmm.
Robin and the channeler. There's this
Mm-hmm.
feeling of, oh, you're nuts, or is this really happening? Or is that true? Do I really like that? Do I like that idea that the persona of Robin is now changing, and I'm trying to grip it and hold on to it? So I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there can be
Mm-hmm.
very internal struggle at times.
I'm an expert on internal struggle, remember?
I'm asking you. Hmm.
So the question that's being posed to you, which is an interesting question in and of itself, because when you ask that question, a regular person, they're kind of taken back. But the question is, the part of you that you're struggling with, how does it serve you?
Mhm.
Because if it didn't serve you, it wouldn't be there. So the logical mind says, well, no, it doesn't serve you. It makes me feel afraid.
Yeah,
Everything serves us.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, and that's a very good answer, because immediately what comes to me is not being seen, is to be um, more in the background or not drawn
Yes.
into myself. That's pretty much how I lived my life. And I was very
So the
much
fo-
a people pleaser, somebody that didn't want
Mhm.
anyone to be unhappy or uncomfortable. And so if I had a differing opinion, often I would just keep it to myself, because I didn't want to impose that on someone. So that's probably part of it.
Yeah. So that part of you is very much helping you feel safe.
Hmm.
It's helping you feel safe. So what's happening in this moment, and I mean, you know yourself very well, but this is how I would speak to a client. So if you're identifying a part of you that's seemingly working against you, but now you're realizing, hey, wait a second, it's not my foe, it's my friend.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, what's happening, you're moving from this to moving into this. So the next question I would have is, what in your view is negative about being seen? What's wrong with being seen?
Hmm. Um, it's more, I guess it's kind of evolved more, not so much into the worry of being seen. It feels like an internal struggle between the part of me that's doing the channel and then the part of me that was known as Robin. It's almost like there's a dying off of the human aspect to some degree. And it almost feels like
Mm-hmm.
it kicks up its heels to that, like
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to being just the old way, or the way that I was known as.
Yes.
And and it's not that that's necessarily something that's going to make me feel safer or better. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like a pull. I don't know how to explain it,
Mm-hmm.
putting it into words.
No, I love this dialogue. So the question is, this part of you that is still trying to protect you is very much part of your identity. It's there for a reason. Here's an interesting question. Who are you without it?
Different than what everybody expects, probably.
So we're talking about
Different
an
than
expectation.
what people are used to. So it comes back down to that,
Yes,
wanting people to be comfortable, wanting
yes,
to receive me in a way
yeah,
that
yes.
their taste, or what they know me as. Yeah,
So
I
now
think
notice what's happening as you're talking right now. There's a feeling that arises. I want you to find it in your body.
it's just kind of a tension, a little bit of
Where?
stomach, in the stomach area, just kind of a,
Okay.
yeah.
So are you open for this?
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. And I want you to connect with that part of you that feels the tension, that is the tension. And just gently allow yourself to feel that without any judgment. And just bring your awareness to that feeling.
Mhm. So it's coming through in a channeled response. So I'll just do it
Mhm.
that way, if that's okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, it is my group channeling. Yeah. How can you go against yourself in something that was used to protect yourself over your entire life? Yeah.
Hmm.
There was a part of you that was very hurt, very damaged, very judged and condemned for your size and the way that you were received as a child. Yeah. And so then you found your way around that by becoming a very good people pleaser and someone that no one ever had objection to. It's the way that you decided to define yourself in order that you would be able to exist under this type of duress or stress that you were under. Yeah. And we love you. Yeah. We think you are doing a wonderful job. It's very similar to what Robin does in the work that she does. And actually, this is going to be very beneficial to her that you have allowed us to come forward and answer a question for her, which is something that doesn't happen very often. It was one of the questions we were going to ask you today. Robin struggles a bit in being able to ask herself a question and get the answer. Her consciousness gets peaked. She comes in and she is not able to allow us to occupy her consciousness and then bring forth the answer that she is looking for. But for some reason, today you have found a way around it. Yeah, she's quite surprised by it. We will let her come back in and then you may respond. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Athena. Is it okay if we do this process my way?
Yes. Yeah.
So, Robin, close your eyes and just connect back to that feeling that you originally felt in your stomach when you're thinking about not living up to other people's expectations. Just allow yourself to feel that energy without any judgment. And when you connect to that feeling or emotion, just let me know.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to give this feeling a shape and a color. Any shape, any color will do. I want you to objectify it.
For some reason, it's coming as an oval shaped in a black color.
Beautiful. So just stay with that without any judgment. And I'd like you to share with me, if you were to touch this object, does it feel soft or solid?
It feels like what I would depict as a soft boiled egg.
Okay. Would it feel warm or cool to the touch?
Warm.
Warm. How big is it?
For some reason, the egg size is coming up.
Okay. All right. Is it right in the middle of your stomach?
Upper middle.
Upper middle. So here's what I'd like you to do. You're doing beautifully. I'd like you to imagine taking this egg-shaped object and place it outside of you on an imaginary table.
Okay.
And then when you have it, just nod your head. Okay. And I want you just to look at it. And as you are looking at it in front of you, I want you to share with me, how do you feel towards it?
I think it's an awful way for an egg to look.
Okay. What else?
It looks diseased or not the way that it should.
Anything else?
No.
Do you want to keep it or do you want to push it away?
I kind of like it out.
Of course you do. Okay, so just keep looking at this object. And then I want you to imagine that this object in front of you has its own consciousness and it has the ability to communicate with you. And I want you to ask it in your mind this question: what do you need from me, meaning from you?
So I'm asking the object what it needs from me.
Yes.
To be taken back in an acceptable form.
Okay. How do you feel about what you heard, what you received?
It's kind of funny that it's a soft-boiled egg because I don't like my eggs soft-boiled. Hard-boiled. Yeah, so I feel like if I could receive it in a new way, then maybe brought back
Okay,
in.
so what I want you to notice, how there's a part of you that wants nothing to do with it, but it wants be accepted by you. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine standing behind this soft-boiled egg so that you are behind it. And I want you to see Robin from its perspective. And I want you to tell me, how do you see Robin from that perspective? How does the egg see you, perceive you?
Well, what's coming is the same way as I perceived it.
Do you feel that there is a disconnect?
There was, yeah,
Yes.
not
So I
preferred.
want you just keep looking at Robin from that perspective. And I want you to notice, what does Robin need more than anything? And from this perspective, it's easy for you to see.
To just be who she is and not be concerned about how someone else might receive me.
Okay, beautiful. So switch your positions. You're Robin again, looking at the egg. And I want you to notice, has this egg changed shape or size or color at all?
It's lightning. It has not changed
Mhm.
or shape.
Okay, it's lightning. So I want you to be curious and I want you to ask it, what made it shift?
Just the awareness of each other.
That's a very good step. Now I want you to ask it, why is it there in the first place? What is it showing you about yourself?
That protective mechanisms will be put in place when needed.
Mhm. I want you to tell it that if it's true for you, that you want to experience more of life than what you are currently experiencing in a positive way. I want you to share that with it.
I am.
Okay. Ask it if it wants the same thing for you.
It does.
Yes. So what you are seeing is that both you and this other consciousness part of you ultimately want the same thing.
Mhm.
Okay. So you are actually aligned. When you hear that, when you see that, when you perceive that, does it make you feel slightly different about it?
It does, because it gives me total recognition that recognition is really what changes consciousness.
Okay. So you are being seen.
Mhm.
Yes. So I want you to ask it to help you experience life to the fullest and ask it if it's willing to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Ask it how. Ask it to show you a practical way how it's willing to help you achieve that.
Okay.
Did you receive it?
I did.
Are you okay with it?
Mhm.
Would you be willing to try it for a size?
Yeah, I would try it.
Okay. So as you're communicating with it, just notice how you feel towards it now versus how you felt towards it before, if different at all.
There's different.
Okay. Does it feel better?
Yeah, it's
More?
better, and it also feels as though it is a gradual unfolding. It's not something that wants to be demanded in the exact
Mhm.
that there's a full acceptance or change, that there will be a gradual unfolding. That's the knowing that I get.
Beautiful. I want you to ask it one more question. This is a very important question. I want you to ask it to show you where it comes from. Where is its origin?
I think it's more lineage.
Ask it to show you the very beginning of its existence. An
Okay.
experience or a situation, yes?
Mhm.
Is it okay that I ask what it is? Are you
Yeah.
comfortable with that?
It's more in my mother's earlier years.
Okay. So you're being shown your mother?
hmm
Okay. In that vision, what does your mother need more than anything?
Just to be comfortable. She was very
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable in her living environment.
Mm-hmm. Would you say she was very stiff, is the word that I get?
Yeah, she was stiff.
Yes. Okay. So thank that part of you for showing you its origin
Mhm.
and tell it that now that you understand it, you don't need to hold on to it any longer.
Yes.
And you can even say, okay, I got the lesson. Thank you.
Okay, I got the lesson. Thank you.
Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to bring that part of you back into your body where it came from and just notice when you place it back. Notice how different it feels, if at all.
hmm
What's the difference, if I may ask?
It feels that, as though it is still there. It still
Mm-hmm.
exists. It will always be a part of you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but not problematic for you.
Beautiful. So take a nice deep breath. Welcome to a new relationship you have with yourself.
Ah, thank you.
You're welcome. You can open your eyes.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure. I love doing this work.
Very nice.
Very
Yeah, very
productive.
nice.
No, you're
Go ahead. What were you going
I
to
was
say?
just going to say, Robin, you're very in tune, so things come to you very quickly. With someone who has not done any self-inquiry, that process may take a little bit, and often does take a little bit longer, right? Because people say, what if I'm making this up? And there's a conversation that takes place in order for them to kind of relax to what they're perceiving. So it's easy to work with you because you trust yourself. I mean, you've done this work for so many years. There's a very part of you that trusts.
Right.
So
You know it's there, basically. And once someone else
yes.
knows it's there, it starts to become easier.
Yes. So one of the things that Heidi asked for me to share is like, Joanna, like, what's your thing? And I had to really think about it because there's so many ways I can describe it. But essentially, my aim, my goal, my desire, my passion is to help people live at peace with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that we are not at odds, we are more in integration. And that's where oneness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
I was going to ask a similar question to Robin, but since I got so much out of hers, I think I'm going to just shift because I know we're getting short on time, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But my situation is I'm sure other people have this too, where I feel like I have this ongoing drainage. So it's like drainage in my throat, or I feel like I'm constantly swallowing. And I personally feel like it is somehow related to ways that I live that maybe are not fully in alignment with who I am. And it's almost like the literal swallowing of the saliva is the swallowing of things in my experience. So I'm wondering if you can help me with I believe it's possible to clear physical conditions out once you have the trust or the faith, but that's my struggle is I think it's possible, but then I somehow can't release that from myself.
So when it comes, and obviously I would always say anyone who struggles with a physical condition, I am not a doctor. I don't profess to be a doctor. I don't profess to heal anybody. So I would say to a client, get it checked out because, seeing a person on a physical level is part of the process, but then there is the energetic process. So what I received right away from you is exactly what are you swallowing without wanting to swallow? In other words, the saying, just swallow it. So what are you at odds with?
I think that one thing in particular is that I kind of am at a place where I'm ready to move to retirement and some things that I find very exciting. And I feel like my husband and I are in a little bit different place with that situation. So I feel like I'm in a waiting or a holding pattern, and I don't love that. That's one thing that comes to mind.
So the question, they're taking a slightly different approach with you. It's more intellectual. Give me different words, please. What are you afraid would happen if you made that choice?
Well, again, I'm a little like Robin, where I feel I'm a people pleaser and I don't want people angry with me, or I don't want tension or frustration. I want to keep peace. So I feel
you're
like
her sister.
The same womb.
So I do feel like that's a factor for me. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things you do very likely, and I know exactly how this works because I used to be the same way. I still am to some degree. You likely tend to avoid conflict. Would that be true? Yes. So what you are doing is you are trying to avoid conflict. What does conflict mean to you?
It means like that I feel bad about myself, or I feel like somehow I've intentionally created a situation that doesn't feel good, that
Mhm.
makes awkwardness, that kind of thing.
Okay. So what you're avoiding is a certain way of feeling. By avoiding conflict, you are trying to avoid how it feels. So what is the feeling that you're trying to avoid?
I would say that maybe there's something wrong with me, or
Well,
maybe I'm.
similar story. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you believe that there is something wrong with you?
I mean, there always are those little doubt moments where those thoughts come through and you think, well, maybe, and then maybe you come to clarity and think, oh no,
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
They're asking me to ask you again. Do you believe there is something wrong with you? It's a yes or no.
No, I guess in the moment I'm saying no. I don't know if that's true or not.
Intellectually, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with you, but
Yeah.
there's a part of you that believes that
Mhm.
there is something wrong with you. Again, you guys are sisters, makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
So, what I would do in your case is I would take you to that part of you that identifies with what is wrong with me.
Mhm.
I grew up most of my life being told that you shouldn't be this. Why can't you be like this? So, my entire existence well, I've got no value to offer. Right. So
Mhm.
that's kind of, we took it in an intellectual way, but that's kind of how I would take you. And I know we talked about the time here. So
Mhm.
so I would invite you to explore how, okay, tell her how. Okay. So the process that I did with Robin, whenever you think of making a choice or a decision and you are met with the understanding that you and your partner are on a different page, what it will do automatically, it will create a certain constriction in your body. I
Mhm.
would guide you to connect with that constriction, identify it where it sits in your body, and literally communicate with that part of you very much in the same way that Robin communicated with that part of hers.
Okay.
And then find a way of doing this versus doing this. Because ultimately that part of you is again helping you. It's trying to help you avoid some unfavorable outcome.
Mhm.
Now, you avoiding an unfavorable outcome is likely rooted in some unfavorable outcome that you've experienced, but you haven't released yet.
Mhm.
So it's connecting with your feeling and emotion and with that part of you in order to help and show you where is the root cause of that experience. It usually goes
Mhm.
back to when we're children, right? So the way I would take you, I would ask you to connect with that inner part of you that would show up at a certain age. It's usually around before the age of 5. Sometimes it's a little bit older, but it often seems to be before the age of 5. And just identify that part of you, the inner child, and just observe her and what she needs more than anything, because there is something that she did not receive when she was growing up.
Mhm.
What I'm perceiving is what I'm being told is that you grew up believing that you were not good enough.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so when we feel like we're not good enough, well, if I'm not good enough, then that means that something must be wrong with me. That's again, it's a story. That's a story. So you're still holding on to that story very much energetically, and that still lives within you. So whenever you come up with a situation where a conflict arises, you go right back to that memory, that
Yeah, that
conscious.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would just say work with your triggers, because triggers are amazing. They're like wealth of information. And I feel just by slowing down the process when identifying your trigger and like literally going into the trigger and saying, trigger, hey, what are you about? What are you
Yeah.
trying to show me? What do you need from me? Because ultimately, that trigger is rooted in something that's trying to help you. It's trying to help you avoid some unfavorable situation. And then you do some work with your inner child, shadow work, all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And would you like to ask, before we close out, would you like to ask anything to Athena?
I'm going to tune in and I'm going to ask what question to ask.
Okay.
So the question to Athena would be, what would be the best way to overcome an insecurity? So right back at you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's coming back to your own teaching, isn't it? Yeah. No insecurity. There is just you that is protecting you from things that made you feel insecure in your past. It is to embrace it. It is to move to the love of self. What is a feeling? It is a choice in a signal that you are releasing to the divine in the way that you prefer to feel. That's what you are doing in your experience. And if something causes you, as you would put it, to feel insecure, then you are to know that. You are to know that I have experienced something in my life that is similar to what I am now encountering, and therefore the same energy is coming up. It is exactly what you had just explained. Sometimes a woman of your beauty, let's use that term, and then the contrast of not feeling accepted as a child is what actually cultivates insecurity. To have the outward beauty, we're not saying that you're not inwardly beautiful, you are, but you didn't recognize that initially, early in your experience. There was some, even what we would call self-loathing or not accepting yourself, yeah? And now you have come into a point where you are starting to recognize your own value, your own inward beauty that is a match to your outward beauty, we would tell you, yeah? And so any little bit of insecurity that you would feel would be the difference between the outward beauty that you exhibit and the inward beauty that you can accept within yourself to match it. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. It's all the value stuff. Beautifully said. Thank you so much for that.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. So, Joanna, if viewers would like to get a hold of you, what services do you offer? How can they get a hold of you?
So the best way to learn a little bit about me, aside from the YouTube content that I produce, joannathehealer.com. It tells you a little bit about my history, what I do. There's a free gift. I think it has 7 files, and all of the information on there is channeled information: how to work with an inner child, how to release karmic patterns. People can book a session with me. Again, I always say, I am not here to tell you what your future is, though it does come in and I don't shy away from it, but it's not my focus. And it's actually interesting. The moment I make it my focus, I disconnect. So because I resist it. I've always resisted it. So anyway, people can connect with me one-on-one. I also have a private group that I coach and mentor, and I'm about to relaunch it again, first time in 4 years. So that will be coming up, and I will be creating an 8-week boot camp to help people kind of bring them to up to speed about what we talked about, so that when they join, the higher consciousness gateway is the platform that they are that they're not just overwhelmed with all their information that comes through. So that's the easiest way. Or they can email me at info@joannathehealer.com.
Yeah.
And thank you for asking.
I, for one, am really grateful to have met you and felt
Likewise.
like what I got was of a great benefit, and I really appreciate your time in doing it. I'm glad to have been on your podcast, and I hope we meet again someday. I really
absolutely hope so
value
too.
what you're doing and really enjoy you as a person.
Thank you. Likewise.
And I also love your process of putting shapes and colors and dimension to that. That's very helpful. So thank you so much.
I mean, who wants a black boiled egg in their belly? Certainly.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you. I feel exactly the same way. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you. Have a good